This is what I get for trying to follow a makeup look that's like over 10 years old. So sometimes before I do an eye look, I'll go online to look up some inspiration on YouTube, Instagram, maybe Pinterest. So I searched naked palette tutorials on Pinterest and this photo popped up and this photo just like brought me back. I am pretty sure I tried to follow this exact look like back originally when I had the naked palette back in, I think it was like 2012 or so. And it's just so funny looking at this picture because this is how I would come up with my makeup looks based off of photos like these that kind of tell you where to place each shadow kind of before makeup tutorials were even a thing on YouTube. But that'd be kind of fun to follow like the mapping of this look. Now the image of her eyes itself looks kind of like there's a filter on it somehow. Like the shades don't really look like the shades really appear in the palette, but I am going to follow the placement of the shades below. So let's get started and try out this look. I already primed my eyes and I set them with the translucent powder, and for my primer I just used the Rare Beauty one. All right, going off of the image, I'm going to start with Hustle on a crease brush. So I have this shade on the tip of my brush and I guess I'm going to run that across my entire crease. Now this already feels kind of funny for me because this isn't typically a shade that I put in my crease. I tend to use this shade more for like deepening up my looks. So I'm interested to see how this shade is gonna look, and because it's more of kind of like a satin, slightly shimmery formula, it's not a matte shade, and usually I put matte shades in my crease. I'm gonna do my best to keep this shape pretty rounded, and I'm bringing it all the way from my outer crease all the way into my inner crease. Now I'm gonna grab my Sigma switch and I'm just gonna clean off that brush I was using just to get all the extra pigment off of it so I can use it to blend. So now that there's no shadow on this brush, I'm gonna use it to soften out these edges. Whenever I'm looking at this shade in the Naked palette, I always think it has a bit of a purpley tone to it, but on my eyelid, it kind of just looks like a cool tone brown. I can definitely see the bit of sheen that this shade has, especially when it's all throughout my crease like that. I'm not the biggest fan of having this type of shade in my crease, but let's keep going. On the same brush, I'm gonna pick up Buck, and for this shade, it says to put it above the crease, so I guess I'm gonna go a little bit higher, but I'm not gonna go too high just because this shade is pretty dark. I don't want to bring a dark shade so close to my brow. Normally I would use the shade Naked for this, but I'm really trying to follow, you know, the instructions for this look and see what we get. I do like that Buck is a matte shade though, so it is kind of mattifying my crease a little bit more, which I just think is more flattering. But these shades are very dark on my pale skin, and you can really just tell where that shadow is stopping and starting. It looks pretty harsh right now. So I really want to blend this out before I keep going, so I'm going to take a small fluffy blending brush, and I have no product on this brush, and I'm just going to use the tip of this right against this harsh line to start to soften it out. So I'm going around all of the edges of this dark shadow. And I'm really putting my brush right on top of that harsh line. Okay, that blend looks much better now. And then looking at my picture, it looks like we're gonna put Sin on the inner lid, Toasted on the mid lid, and then Dark Horse on the outer crease. All right, so I'm gonna take a firm shader brush in the shade Sin, and again, that's going on the inner part of my lid. And this is a shade that I would wear on my lid all the time back when I had this palette. I always liked the little bit of a pink sheen that this shade has. And then same brush, I'm gonna grab Toasted, and it says to put this shade on the mid lid. The formula of this palette just feels so old to me. Does that make sense? I really don't think the formula of these shadows are amazing, especially when I've been using palettes like the Huda Beauty Icy Nude, my Natasha Denona palettes, my Makeup by Mario. Like, those palettes are so new with such a good formula, and these are just very lackluster. Like, it's just not giving me anything on my eyelids. I don't think it looks that great at this point, honestly. I'm actually gonna try Toasted on my finger because I feel like the brush just really wasn't doing that for me. Okay, I tried wetting my brush with Toasted, if that helps at all. I'm just trying a couple different ways to see if I can make this shadow, I don't know, just stand out a bit more. I do think that looks a bit better, so I'm kind of bringing Toasted really on the outer half of my eyelid, so it goes from Sin toasted. I'm gonna go back to my crease brush. Again, there's not really any product on this because I cleaned it off on my Sigma switch, but I'm just gonna very softly blend around those shimmers. They're kind of all merging into one. This look just looks muddy to me, doesn't it? This is what I get for trying to follow a makeup look that's like over 10 years old. And then it says Dark Horse for the outer crease. So I'm gonna take that on my crease brush, and I'm gonna start by kind of stamping this on my outer crease area, but I am gonna bring this along the very outer part of my lid too. Kind of connect it. I just realized that it doesn't say anything for the lower lash line, and I just looked at the picture again and it looks like she just has black liner along her lower lash line with this eye look. Okay, I do like the amount of depth that this Dark Horse shade is adding. Can I be so real with you right now? I honestly want to stop this video, wipe this all off, start over, and kind of do a look that I want to do. But I feel like I should keep going, and I know a lot of you guys like to see how I fix my eyeshadow looks and the things that I struggle with too, because we all struggle with our makeup sometimes. But honestly, in this case, I think the problem is just the formula of these shadows and how I put two of those kind of more shimmery shades in my crease, because I just don't like how the shimmer reflects in my crease on this outer corner right here. I just don't think it looks good. It doesn't really look flattering on my eye shape, so I am struggling a bit here. I also really just don't think these shades go together. It's only the second day of 12 days of tutorials, but we're struggling here. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna try to salvage this look. I do need to put something on the lower lash line. I'm not gonna do just black liner. I'm not trying to do a look from the 2000s right now. So I'm gonna take Dark Horse on a pencil brush, and I'm gonna run that across my entire lower lash line. Now, I actually don't mind these more shimmery shades on my lower lash line. I actually think that can look really pretty and flattering to have like that little bit of sparkle down there. It's just the crease where I don't really like to place this type of formula. And then same brush, I'm gonna take a little bit of Buck. I'm also gonna add that to the lower lash line. Now that I have my lower lash line done, I'm gonna go back to Dark Horse on my pencil brush and just kind of retouch it up on this very, very outer part of my lid, kind of where my lid connects to my crease and also my lower lash line. So Dark Horse is kind of going like this, all the way around on this outer part. Doing something on the lower lash line definitely helped. It's kind of coming together now. Now, what I'm not loving about this look right now is how dark it looks right here on that inner crease area because I have Hustle and Buck in there. So I'm gonna go back to that small fluffy brush I was using with a little bit of my face powder, and I'm gonna use that to kind of clean up this little inner crease area. And this almost kind of acts as an eraser because it really just smooths it out. I'm also gonna run some of this under my brow, kind of in this crease area that's looking just a little too shiny, a little bit too reflective. This powder will just very subtly mattify this area, not completely, but I think it'll look a little bit better, yeah? But still following this picture tutorial, there's two more shades I still have to use. It says to put Half Baked on the inner corner and then Virgin right under the brow. So I'm gonna go back to my Sigma switch and just kind of clean off that pencil brush, and I'm gonna pick up Half Baked. I don't think I've ever put this shade in my inner corner because it's a gold and it's kind of deep on me for an inner corner highlight. Okay, it's actually not terrible. Still don't love it though. And then grabbing Virgin. All right, and this shade on my brow bone, which is normally what I do with the shade Virgin. I'm also gonna add it in my inner corner because I need this to be a little bit lighter. Half Baked just doesn't work for inner corner for me. Okay, so that is the eyeshadow done for this look. I still need to do a liner and some lashes, but let's pull up the picture again that I was following. These do not look like the same look. It honestly doesn't even look like the same shades. Like I said, there's some kind of filter on the photo. I just don't know if I 100% believe that the look she's wearing is this tutorial from the palette. So let's salvage this look with some liner and lashes. I'm gonna take a dark brown liner. This is Makeup Forever Limitless Brown, and I'm going to use this to make a wing. So I'm going to start by drawing this on the outer part of my lower lash line, and then I'm going to use that as a guide to extend that line outwards to make my wing shape. And then I'm going to smudge out that liner with a small angled brush. Now I have that baseline made for my wing. Then I'm going to add a little bit more liner to the outer part of my top lash line. Then again, using that angled brush to smudge out the liner kind of into the shape that I want. Kind of just going for a smudgy liner today with this brown. So for this eye, instead of doing the same exact look on this side that I'm clearly not very happy with, I don't like the way that this looks, I don't like all the shimmers in the crease, I thought it might be helpful to show you kind of my interpretation of this look and how I would take the inspiration from that photo tutorial and do it kind of my way and my style, and kind of walk you through how I'm going to change things and why I would change it. So first I'm going to pick up Buck on a crease brush, and I'm going to blend this shade throughout my entire crease. So remember in the picture tutorial, they had Buck in the upper crease area with the shade Hustle throughout the entire crease. But like I've said many times now, I don't really love those kind of shimmery shades in the crease. I don't like the sheen that it gives and the shape and effect that it gives my eyelid. So I really think just having matte shades in the crease is the most flattering look, because the crease shade is supposed to give you some definition and some color, not give you a big mess of whatever this is. So instead I'm putting Buck throughout my entire crease because this is a matte shadow, because it's going to give you that bit of color, some definition, and some shape to your eye look. And matte shadows are typically easier to blend too, so they really just look best in the crease. So I did layer up this Buck shade a few times to get this amount of pigment in my crease. But unfortunately that is kind of one of the ways that you're pretty limited with this palette, because there are only 2 matte shades in this palette. You have Naked, which is the lighter brown, and then this shade Buck. But that goes to say pretty much anytime I am using this palette, I'm putting Naked and or Buck in my crease, and that's it. Now for the lid shades, we had Sin and Toasted. They're really not popping on the eyelids, so because I'm kind of playing around with this second look, I want to see how it looks if I layer my glitter primer underneath it. So I just have a little bit of that on my finger, and I'm going to place this along my entire eyelid. I'm going to start with Sin on that same shader brush, put that on the inner half of the lid. Okay, yeah, already that shade is completely popping so much more than it did on that side. Wow. I only recently started using this glitter primer this year, but it really does make such a difference with pretty much any shimmer shadow that you use. And then I picked up Toasted, and that's going to go on the outer half of my lid. I'm already feeling so much better about this eye look, honestly. And then going back to my crease brush with nothing on it, I'm just going to softly blend in the crease to smooth out the edges of the shimmers. Now for that deeper dark horse shade, I am going to put that on the outer corner, pretty similarly how I did to the first eye. So I just have some of that on the tip of my crease brush, and I'm just going to lightly stamp this kind of on the outer crease area. And I'm not really moving my brush around that much because, again, I don't like having so much shimmer in my crease, but a little bit on my outer crease I can deal with, and I think can actually look really good. Then I'll just kind of bring that down to the very outer part of my eyelid. Now for the lower lash line, I'm going to take Buck on my pencil brush and running that across the entire lower lash line. Now the reason I did a lot of dark horse along this lower lash line was to kind of match the intensity of how much darkness is up in this crease area, but for this eye, because it does look softer without that hustle shade throughout my entire crease, I can keep the lower lash line a lot softer and do Buck down here. But I am going to grab a little bit of dark horse, add that to the very outer part of my lower lash line to add a little bit of depth, and then again I like to connect it to this very, very outer part of my eye right on the outer corner. And see how for this eye, you can kind of see the difference between the shadows that I'm wearing, where I feel like for this look, it just kind of looks like one muddy mess. Where on this eye, because I use that NYX glitter primer, my lid shades are popping more. So I can totally see the Sin shade going into Toasted. I can see the brown matte shade Buck around my entire eye. And then I do see the bit of depth on the outer corner with that dark horse shade. Now I am going to put Virgin under my brow because that is what I normally do with this palette. Then also bringing Virgin into my inner corner because we established that Half-Baked is a bit too deep for me for my skin tone in the inner corner. Half-Baked would work in your inner corner if you're more like a medium to deep skin tone, but for me and my fair skin, it's not a highlight shade. Now I know I didn't use any of that Hustle shade for this look, and that's because I feel like you don't need to have Hustle and Dark Horse in the same look. Like here's what they look like swatched out. This is Dark Horse, this is Hustle. They look very similar. The only difference is kind of the tone really. Whereas Dark Horse has more green to it and Hustle is like a little bit more purple purple, just kind of cool tone brown. So I don't think you need both in a look because that's what's going to give you this kind of messy, muddy crease. I'm going to go ahead and do the same type of eyeliner on this eye and pop on some mascara. All right, liner and mascara is done, and this is the final eye. So then here are both eyes side by side, the tutorial I tried to follow, and then my kind of cleaned up version of this look. You already know that I prefer this eye. The placement of the shadows just makes sense, and also adding that NYX glitter primer just really made that shade on my inner lid pop, and I think it looks so pretty. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this look. Honestly, this video did not turn out what I expected it to be. I wanted it to be a 12 days of tutorials tutorial using the Naked palette, but it kind of turned into more of like a teaching moment, I guess. I would love to know which eye look you prefer and just your thoughts on this video in general, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.